So hello, Gaye. How are you doing?
Hi, Ben. I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, I'm good. It's so good for you to be happy to engage in this conversation and to join me on this.
Thank you.
So yeah, so let's get into it. So obviously, this series or these interviews are called Walking Well, and we're obviously going to explore what that means, walking well. And let me start off with just saying, so what do you do, Gaye? What's your job?
Oh, I'm a children's occupational therapist for
Okay.
children and young people. So, not many people know what an OT is.
Yeah.
It's not a very understandable title, but occupation is what you do. So it's bringing meaning and purpose to what people do, whether that's at work, at home, leisure, and building their independence.
Yeah.
And just a meaningful life, meaningful roles, meaningful responsibilities, just meaningful activities.
So I can imagine OTs can work in a very wide spectrum.
Absolutely huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously you're specifically working, you said, with children.
Yeah, with children and young people. Yeah, sometimes young adults, but more your 0 to 25-year-olds. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm imagining that possibly you had these ideas and rumblings as a young girl. So what made you go into this?
Yeah, that's a good question, which I often think about, but it's a quick, easy answer. Yeah, I just shadowed a physio and a speech and language therapist and then saw what the OT did and thought, oh, I think I'll enjoy doing that. I still often would love to be a speech therapist or maybe a physio, but you use their skills together. But absolutely love doing OT. So it's really an opportunity to shadow. And one of my mom's friends had a little boy in the family. It was a family friend who was selective mute. That basically means he chose not to talk. And from a young, I think I was 10 or 11, we used to just look after him quite a lot. And I just had an affinity to him. His name was David. Right. And yeah, just from there, I was drawn to somebody with needs.
Right. So I can imagine that you're working with families who are going through some sort of a transition. So they're experiencing some kind of a change, and then you come along and do what?
Yeah, and really just walk alongside them and try and bring hope.
Yeah.
As an overarching, practically, as well as socially, emotionally. And because I work independently now and I'm not in the NHS, I'm also trying to bring some spiritual hope and the love of Jesus to them. And obviously that has to be done really carefully and with good integrity. But there have been some amazing moments when I've been able to have that connection with people. And so that's always at the heart of what I do, if that can change their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I can imagine, just like anybody, when you set out and you get married and you want to start a family, you expect things to turn out a certain way. You have these ideals, these dreams, these desires, these expectations. And then maybe it doesn't turn out like that.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that that's what you're profoundly witnessing.
Absolutely, yeah, every single day. And it's that kind of journey that families are on, and that individual who is coping or trying to cope and get their head around either a physical disability, a mental illness. Yeah, and we walk there as a family as well. So it's bringing a professional view on it as well as a personal. So it's interesting. It's very rewarding, challenging, but yeah definitely calling.
So people deal with these adjustments very differently.
Yeah.
I can imagine some people somehow have the capacity and the ability and just an innate know-how to maybe deal with something that's very life-changing. And then there are other people maybe who are very reluctant or find it harder and hold on to things.
Yeah.
So I can imagine sometimes you have to be very gentle with people in just getting them to see what they need to let go of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and doing that really carefully and really slowly. I use a lot of observational skills and just looking and listening rather than jumping in. And obviously, the more you do the work, you get better at doing that. Whereas when you're young and fresh out of uni, you think, oh, I'm going to go in and help that family straight away. And I've learned that actually it takes time, and respecting where they're at. And then looking at really the whole family and that whole partnership and that whole connection, who's in the family, how's everyone helping or struggling to help to cope, and how they're managing it. And I always go back to that issue of relationship and partnership, only because very early in my relationship with Tim, who I'm now married with, we met each other at school. On our honeymoon, we went river rafting, and that was a very good experience of just working together through these rapids. And I very quickly learned that we had to pull together. And then soon after that, we had a break-in in Cape Town. We walked in, and there were some guys there, and we had to very quickly find a solution so that we could survive. So in that uncomfortableness, where things just were all thrown up in the air, we had to kind of come back down and just think, right, how are we going to overcome this and work together? And so going into families, that's often at the back of my mind, is looking at the situation where people didn't expect this situation to happen, or this experience, or this, profound disability they or their family member may have. And so it's that surprise, that element of surprise and almost being out of control, like, oh wow, this has just happened to us. How are we going to manage this? And so I don't necessarily share those personal experiences, but I often go back to how I felt and how I coped with that, and the trauma of that, and who was there for me, and who did I have to rely on to get through it. So that is good, I think, because it personalizes it for me. And if I'm able to share it with them, people think, wow, you're not just coming in waving a wand and have all these strategies, you've actually been through it yourself. And I think that's incredible. So I'm lucky to have had that, in a way, through some tragedy, trying to use it for better.
I can imagine, with some families, you could have some individuals in that family that maybe have very different opposing views of what should be the next step, or what the likely outcomes are. They could be on a very different railway track, I guess. And they possibly could have very unrealistic expectations. I mean, how do you talk to somebody who possibly is holding on to something that is never going to happen?
I often look at talking about dreams first, and acknowledging what we would have hoped to be, because I think that's part of, dare I say, almost letting go, but we have to acknowledge what isn't in order to really then grab a hold of what may be. So I know a professor, I'm a counselor or psychologist, but even if it's just naming, I envision my child, to be well, or be able to talk, or our family to cope a bit better. And I think when you see somebody, and I've been through it, where you can actually name it and say it and express it and identify it, as heartbreaking as it is, there's release in that. And that's the starting step, and acknowledging what dreams have been lost and laying those down, and then picking up something new. So it starts almost in a painful way. But there's real growth through that. So it's being sensitive to families when they're ready to do that. And some, yes, are quicker than others and are quite expressionful. I'm a very, how do you say, my emotions are quite high to the surface. It doesn't take much for me to maybe cry or laugh, and I'm not afraid of that. But I have to respect that other people maybe are more cautious of expressing that and letting that go. Yet it's there, but it's deeper. And everyone's so different, aren't they? We're all so unique in our ways of dealing with things. But yes, it's coming alongside them and just bearing with them, and then ultimately bringing hope and change. And it can be the smallest little strategy, or even if it's equipment, an aid that may help them, or it's a way of doing things, or there's so much out there. It's amazing when you get that feedback and they say, wow, just that one thing has changed how we do stuff, how we live, and how to help the individual. So yeah, through that acknowledging, letting go, there's release and exploring something new. Yeah.
So from your own personal experience, you know, you've got 2 daughters and a son, and I guess you're living with your story, which at times I can imagine is maybe not what you imagined. And I guess everyone, like I said earlier, maybe at different speeds at processing it, you know, and it probably can be from day to day. Somebody might be having different needs. How do you as a mum, walking your own journey with it, then also somehow finding capacity to support others within your family? How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, I don't do it very well all the time. I try to. Again, it's the grace of every day, just a new day, that underlines it. I guess it's different things. It's recognizing, again, those dreams, those aspirations, and talking about it. I think if we can get families and people, and as the family, try and talk as much as we can, or give someone the space to, whether they've woken up that day and they just a bit more sad that things aren't as they had thought, or someone's reacted stronger. Yes, like you mentioned, our son Zach has really bad seizures. They're not very controlled. So we literally do sometimes live hour to hour, if not minute to minute, because it's very unpredictable. And so we all come into the day with aspirations and plans and an element of control. And so we always have to acknowledge and respect one another when things change. And we talk a lot about entitlement. Right. This kind of sense that, well, I should have that. I should have an expectation, a clear path of how things will be. And actually, where does that come from? That and I've got no answer to that. It's more just acknowledging, well, wow, why am I making it more about me? Actually, we're all entitled to love, respect one another in this home, be patient. Patience is a big one. Tolerance, respect, whether you are able or disabled, you know, you still have potential, you still have possibilities. So we're learning as a family to acknowledge that in one another, respect that, and to lay down all those things of I would like, or this is important to me, and to share that as a family and go, hold on, what's important to you? So like I say, we have days when that just clicks really well, and days when it doesn't, but that's life. Hey, that's like family, and we're all at different ages and life roles. So but it makes it's exciting. In a way, I wouldn't have it any different, because it is so vibrant. A little bit more predictability would be nice. If I'm honest with God, I do say that. But then equally, he blesses us with that when we least expect it. There's been many times, you know, even when Zach was a baby, where, you know, doctors predicted certain things, and then have stood over his cot and just said, there's something about this little boy. I remember one doctor in Alderhay said, there's something about him that it's just remarkable how he's overcome this. And so medical science couldn't quite explain it. And so we, as a family, reflect on that a lot, that if medical science can't explain it, there's got to be something bigger. And we just stay in that place and hold on to that, and try and understand that, and just appreciate that. And that's enough for that day.
So would you agree that, I guess, if as a family you are living with somebody that you have to consider, like you explained, you obviously have to overtly consider Zach, because there's that potential of maybe we have to slow down, or make way, make room, be patient, all that. I can imagine that you probably see humanity at its best. You know, you see your other kids, or yourself, or Tim, at its best, but also at times, like you say, just Yeah, maybe not at its best. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I can
Yeah.
imagine. And so in a way, maybe that is the beauty of it. It's just so raw and real
Mm.
of every person, everyone's temperament within your family is on show.
Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking about that. Yeah, it is. And that's quite hard to bear some days,
Yeah.
because you don't want to peel back all those layers. You want to just kind of go, no, it's all okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I look back, I think, am I the same person? Sorry, would I be the same person now if I hadn't, been able to do the work I do, or our family didn't have the dynamics it does? And without a doubt, Tim and I would both say we wouldn't be the same person, because it's drawn us closer to God in ways. It's allowed us to reflect. It's changed how and what we pray for, what we look for, really. And I can certainly see that in all three of my kids. They look for miracles. You see, now you're going to start to make me cry, Ben. They look for miracles in the smallest things. And and just spending that time with God and reflecting on him in the morning or the night, just spending some time with God in that day. And we've all come to acknowledge that that's so important, that we have to do that discipline, because it's, again, that big word of control. I still like to be a person who thinks I'm in control or has some elements of control. But when we walked into that house and were met with, men that shouldn't have been there, that were packing up all of our stuff and threatened us, and you literally are, running out the window, climbing out the window for your life, you soon realize, where's the control? What control do I have? And I've tried for so long, and I can see in some of us as a family, we try so long to put up all these barriers and foundations to make sure that everything's in control, and it just wears you out. It honestly just wears you out, because you can't sustain it, and you just have that breakdown eventually, or that's just like, oh, I can't do this. And I think I've seen us as a family, I've seen other families, friends, for various reasons, but struggling with hardship and struggling with letting something go that isn't how they envisioned. Be able to release that control and relinquish it. And that's good. That's good. Because you just start to think that who's in charge of everything, who's got the bigger authority, and who am I going to trust?
I mean that's what people have been talking a lot about, in the last 12 months, haven't they? Is this element of feeling vulnerability, because there's a deeper perception maybe that we are vulnerable on this planet, and we've had a crude reminder of that. And I guess over a whole lifetime span, you have particular moments where you really are faced with this: I am not in charge. I'm not in control. And I guess those moments, they're hard, aren't they?
They are hard. And sometimes we want to wash them clean, or wipe them, or ignore them. Or we really are just sit in them, and we kind of wallow there. Every day is different, and I think it's okay just to be who you are, and have those emotions, those feelings. Again, that's a whole element of OT is emotional regulation, and you'll have your highs and your lows. But ultimately, you're trying to find a balance, so not to be too hard on yourself when we react or are responsive to something. It's part of who we are, but it's working through that and then coming to some kind of acceptance, I guess, because we want to all pray for miracles or change, or signs to eradicate a lot of illnesses and find cures for lots of things. And that's awesome. That's amazing that people are so knowledgeable and will make progress. But equally, this is the world we live in, and there's going to be pain, and there's going to be suffering. And what does that mean for us, and how do we carry that, and how can we use that? We talk a lot about that, but when we're walking, how do I use my suffering? But actually, sometimes I think it's just stopping and accepting it, and then just walking through it with God, because he will show you how to use it and where to go, and reflect that onto other people. I've had situations where it surprised me, just picking up bananas in Aldi, and the lady next to me, I can just see looks broken, and kind of just giving a reassuring smile, or she sees Zach and he's not quite responsive and she acknowledges, and there's almost a non-verbal, like, oh, I'm with you in this, something's hard, you know, and you almost want to explore a conversation, but it's not right. But there's something about a human connection, and I think if we can do that a bit more and slow down and notice people and just acknowledge them for where they're at, we could do a lot more in terms of healing and helping and taking those steps. And going back, that's what we try to, in our family as such, is respecting each other to do that. And I think we could do that in the community, do that in our workplaces, our schools, a lot more. To take that walk together and to respect each other better.
If somebody was watching this, Gaye, who, you know, who's in the thick of it, you know, you can imagine the times when you were in the thick of it. You know, what would you say to them? What encouraging words could you give them? Somebody who's in the middle of it. You know, uncertainty is just the dominant card in front of them.
No, it's massive. I always try and say it's almost just like stop first. We use that stretch quite a lot in special schools, because we've got all these ideas of what we could do and relinquish control and reset your priorities, but it also just stops with stop, and just take a deep breath in, really, and just sit with where you're at, and I guess starting, just let that emotion out. Find somebody that you could express it with, because maybe you have kept it to yourself, even if it's with your spouse. You know, Tim and I talk quite a bit, or have in the past, about where we felt we've lost something, yet we've gained, but we had to let, and it's interesting hearing someone else's perspective for what they envisioned things would be, but acknowledging that loss. That's not a weakness. It's not a sign of weakness. That's the start of something new. Laying it down. And so I always tell people, when you're at your broken, you may just be broken even a little bit more, but sit with that and then let it go. Give it to someone. Yes, pray. Just write it out to God, or put it in a prayer journal. When you look back on that later, but say it out. Say it to someone. Express it. And release that, and then again spending more time with people who can support you, and God to then take you from that place, because you do need that. You need to acknowledge it, but you need to move from it in a way. It will always be there because it's part of your life, but how can it be morphed? How can it be changed? How can it be not changed, but how can it just grow into something different? And I think spending time with God in prayer is oh man, it's just so key, because I've learned lately in the last 6 months how to really lament, and I never really thought it was the right thing to do. I thought, no, I've got to be strong. How can I moan at God, or just express complete frustration, complete exhaustion, or disappointment? That, I can't blame him for that. But actually, through people around me and reading the word, God said, it's okay, just let those out. And there was freedom in that, just surrendering that to him and just saying, here you go.
I heard you talking the other day about, being really honest, and just try and be as honest as you can with your feelings, with who you are in front of God. And I guess that makes absolute sense. I would, you wonder whether you possibly discover who you are when you're being that honest. Yeah, you do. And you think you're being honest, but then there's just a little bit more, because it's so raw. It's like a wound. It's just like, whoa, it's exposed, and you want to cover it up. And you want to do that with your children too, or your loved ones, so you're in pain. I've spent hours searching for the right medicine, the right doctors, treatment, and people will say, have you tried this? And eventually I've said, no, actually, well, we have, but that didn't work. And that's okay. We can't always have this quick band-aid or solution. It's that honesty, and then that acceptance in that.
yeah, to move forward from it. And again, there, that relinquishing control, because yeah, we have to have plans and we have to have routines and aspirations, absolutely. But it's coping when those have changed or adjusted or malaligned. What path do we take? How do we respond? How do we react to that? So just stopping to reassess it and look at it can give you that extra space and time just to go, hang on a minute, where's God in this? Or where am I going to be in this? What's that person saying? Just gives you that time just to give a different perspective, to reassess the situation before just jumping in it.
Because I guess, I mean, I've experienced obviously anger myself, but when we're really angry, you know, when something doesn't go our way and we keep trying and trying and trying, and, you know, particularly when it's something so close to our hearts and we're repeatedly disappointed, we get so angry, don't we? I mean, what have you done with your moments of anger at things just not turning out?
Yeah, I tend to go for a run or a cycle, get into exercise. That does help, just to release that, I think, from your body. Take some time out. Yeah, I've expressed that to people probably. You know, you take it out on them mistakenly, but you shouldn't. But that person who's your loved one close by tends to understand and can reflect and go, hang on, where's the focal point of this? Where's this coming from? And to acknowledge it. Looking at all those emotions, where are you in it? You know, which kind of zone are you in? How's your reaction? Are you in more that kind of fight mode of anger, or do you just want to escape from it? You know, just want to flee? Have you, almost just frozen? You know, your fight, flight, freeze, those adrenaline kind of responses, because that's again your feelings and your emotions. And if we acknowledge that first and then move, to our logical thinking, we can then problem solve.
I mean, people say, you've got to burn off your anger, otherwise it will sit somewhere else, possibly in your body. And I guess the times when I've really expressed my anger at God, it's almost like you then go, well, I've said all that. I've expressed all that. Now what? And I guess you probably need time, don't you, to allow yourself to be maybe loved, to be nursed, to be healed. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for expressing and burning off. And I guess when you are communicating your anger, it's sometimes you feel so bad because it sounds so awful, doesn't it? It sounds so selfish.
Ungrateful.
Not pretty.
Yeah, no, it's not. Hey, but as you do it, or you recognize it, the flip side is probably also some sadness, some disappointment. So I feel always emotions are often a bit flip side, and to not feel guilty that you have that. It's an emotion, it's a feeling, it's what you do with it, really. Hey, but burn it off or get a way of getting it out. I think writing it down is quite good. I've got numerous prayer journals on a shelf, where I can look back and really look back with, wow, I've grown through that, or I forgot that I actually experienced such intense emotions in that. When we had that breaking, I never ever imagined growing from it. There were times I couldn't even go to the supermarket because someone was approaching me and I thought they looked like that man. And it was, I almost wanted to just keep myself inside, and people helped me to think, you've got to overcome this. But with that came anger of like, oh no, but this has affected me, and how dare they have done that, and then disappointed that I couldn't cope with it. But going through all of that, you come out the other side. That memory's still there, because memories are, but it's got better. You've always got to be hopeful that things can get better, and bringing that hope to people around when they are really struggling and at their lowest. When it, and I can identify that when it does seem so dark, you just think, what way is there out of it? And you may not get that answer of what way is out of it, but the way to stay in it is to just bear it and hold on. My mother-in-law gave me a little book ages ago, and again, there you see steps of how it prepares you. It's it's got like a Christian reference, but they're not specific verses, but it's just this little character and a tree, and how he holds onto the tree in different positions.
Right.
And builds that tolerance and that perseverance. And I was looking for it this morning to remind myself and couldn't find it. And
Right.
again, I was like, I haven't got control. Where did I put it? And then I just stopped and thought, you know what? I remember giving it to someone. I can't remember who it was.
Right.
But again, there, I've got to release that. Like, it's obviously doing good for someone else because they're looking at it.
Yeah.
But I've gone off thought now. But yeah, it's recognizing that emotion and then what you do with it. And hey, and I think we're really colorful people. I think we've got lots going on.
Yeah. We
should rejoice in that in ways too.
So have things settled down a bit for you and your family? And
yeah, so the threat of uncontrollable seizures is still there. We still have hope. We see a lot of doctors, and we see a lot of other professionals to help the rest of us in the family, how different family members cope with it. So we have that input from medical professionals to try and help us, and we don't know if we'll ever find something that will give Zach long-term control, but we do see him live a life that is almost unexplainable with the condition he has. And that's enough for us for each day, that God is definitely more in control there, just by what we can see happening. So as much as it pains you that you want it to change in the way you envision it changing, because that will be amazing, that will be clearer. Wouldn't that be the better way, God? That's too maybe neat and packaged. He's doing something more, something much bigger that sometimes we don't see, but sometimes we really do see. And when we hold on to that, we acknowledge that and go, wow, that's miraculous, that is divine, that is definitely him here. And that's all, that's going to be worth it, because again, we're only here on this earth now. There's so much longer that we're going to be somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So we will have that release, and it speaks in the Bible. Where is it? In Jeremiah, it speaks about, God has plans, good plans for us, to give you hope and to give you a future. So even when we see Zach struggle, he just lives for the moment. He's got plans and dreams to be all sorts of things. We have to trust that, well, God will fulfill his promises, because we've seen him done that. He has been faithful. And if he's embedding that in this little boy or people around him and us as a family, then that's enough for today to hold on to that, because he doesn't break his promises. He never has. The situation may still stay similar or the same in terms of the grief and the pain and the situation, the person not being healed as such. But again, there you could talk for ages about healing and change and miracles, because we've decided to open our eyes and see a lot more than we were seeing before. And I think God he definitely wanted us to do that. So that's a good thing. And that's hard and painful, but that's a good thing then if I'm more open to seeing all this stuff. Yeah.
Well, great, Gaye. I obviously wish your family the best.
Thank you.
And I hope you see lots and lots of miracles and lots of good stories come from your family. But thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable and sharing your story with us. It was really good to talk to you.
You're absolutely welcome. Thanks, Ben.